up on 10 minutes after 7 o'clock as we settle nicely inside hour number 2 of the Breakfast Roundtable for today, Monday, the 12th of December, 2016. We just want to pop across to the Morning Brew where our colleague Hema Ramkisoon is chatting with Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi about the crime situation.
All the rest, we're waiting on the local appeal pending. The reason why I'm able to tell you with precision that there are 32 people spread across the Privy Council and other areas is that the law is, as saved by our Constitution, that if you're convicted of murder, you will hang. It's not been carried out before because nobody was managing the system prior to Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj having the opportunity, then Pratt and Morgan setting in. So you got 5 years to do your job.
Can you do it?
Well,
Can you make sure that the law is...
It will not be me doing it. What it will be is me ensuring that the system is working. And to put in that resource management is what has been done. I'm able to tell you right now the number of people. It wasn't my mistake. It's because the system is being measured to be performed. And what I can tell you...
And when can you get the system to work that the 5-year period will not run out and the law will actually be carried to its end?
By making sure that those who are on the top of the list 6, that their last appellate process is managed out properly, by making sure that the prosecutorial arm, which the government assists from the DPP's end by funding, etc., has the resource base to do it, and then let the law be applied. But what I can tell you, Hema, I was shocked to see when I came in as Attorney General that there was absolutely no work on the LRC agenda. And now I know why the last government refused to publish a legislative agenda. Because they had a great run in 2010 when they came in because they met a lot of work which the PNM government left behind. But the attention to the systemic positions. Look, right now, the Prime Minister has ensured that the Minister of Finance is pushing the circulars for the operationalization of the public procurement legislation. Public procurement, we have laws...
And that's Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi speaking with our colleague Hema Ramkisoon on the Morning Brew, and basically saying that he is lining up all his ducks in a row to ensure that they can actually resume hangings here in Trinidad and Tobago and not fall within the Pratt and Morgan boundaries, as it were. That's one of the many issues people are talking about today. Another one has to do with David West, PCA chairman, who may have made a couple injudicious statements which raised the ire, I can tell you, of the entire police service and forced him to, make a hasty statement of apology. And I'm going to read that statement. But before I do, good morning to you, Martin George, member of the Police Service Commission.
Hi, good morning to you, Jesse May.
Good
morning to your panel. Good morning, Dr. Wayne. Good morning, Edison. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Your Honor.
So this is the statement that would have been released by Mr. West. Quote, I apologize for the statement as having come over as an indictment against the entire Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. I ought to have said that there is an element of rogue officers within the service who have to be removed and brought before the courts. So that's the statement that, he clarified his position, as it were. But I think not many people were satisfied with that because Dr. Bo Tiwari, on his Facebook page over the weekend, put, quote, West, as the sitting authority on complaints against police, has irretrievably compromised his position. He has apologized, but that is not enough. No policeman being investigated by the Police Complaints Authority can now feel that justice will be served. David West made a fatal error of judgment, and in order to prevent the Police Complaints Authority from accusations of bias and inevitably its collapse, David West must resign. A word to the wise. End quote. What do you make of those two statements?
Well, the thing is, Jesse, while I think certainly David may have spoken, given feeling to the raw emotion that would obviously be churning within him, I think reflective of the frustration that he must feel in terms of trying to rein in rogue officers in the police service. I am not sure that Dr. Tiwari's reaction or response is necessarily justified. And, I have always said it, Jessime, and I will continue to say it. We in Trinidad and Tobago, we use this call for resignation as a knee-jerk reaction, and it's usually used along narrow partisan political lines simply to score points. Mm-hmm. It's not done on the basis of the moral, ethical standards that are accepted internationally. Because, in other words, there are mistakes and there are, egregious mistakes which are irredeemable. And I am not sure that this necessarily comes to that standard where it is that, you have to say, well, look, people can feel no sense of confidence at all. The point is, from his clarification, it's clear that what he's saying is that, look, all right, I didn't mean all the officers, and of course that apology has to be, done, has to be made, and he did so, I think, in a timely manner. But he reiterated that, look, he's talking about some of the officers who are rogue officers, and unless we confront that situation, I tell you, we are going to see the continuing decline of law and order in Trinidad and Tobago, because it is not something that needs to be gainsaid to say that, look, a big part of the problem with policing in Trinidad and Tobago is the police. It's not all of them, it's not a majority of them, but there are some officers who really are, they are a scourge within the service, and those are the ones that need to be targeted and removed from the service. And, so I can understand, and I tell you this because I speak from a position of, certain knowledge and information that I have. Mm-hmm. So I understand the frustration that Mr. West felt. And of course, as public officials, particularly when you wear a hat such as he does, you must never, no matter how much the emotion is boiling within you, you must never give a vent to it publicly, or maybe even privately. You really have to keep it within yourself and keep a lid on it and still keep that, balance, at all times.
Let's go to that issue that you raised in terms of getting rid of the, pelting some antibiotics behind the virus or the bacteria that is infecting the police service. Some people have told me that the system is not working, that, for example, the Police Complaints Authority, the Professional Standards Bureau, and police administration really need to be talking with each other if they are going to deal in a serious way with police officers who are not doing what they're supposed to do, who are behaving badly, and also who police officers who have been accused of behaving badly but who really are innocent, to clear their name quickly. These entities need to be speaking to each other on a regular basis, and they need to work hand in hand to sort out any and all of these complaints that come up. But for whatever reason, the regulations, the legislation, the way it's been drafted, it does not allow for that cooperation to take place, because everybody wants the same thing, which is a clean and professional police service.
Well, the thing is, Jessime, it's not just a matter of the legislation. There are practical things that can be done. For instance, the police service of itself has its own internal disciplinary procedures. But I can tell you, Jessime, the statistics will show that most of these matters, they take years and years and years.
And is that something that can be fixed by regulations? How can that be fixed?
No, the point is, this is what I'm telling you. This is not a matter of regulations. This is a matter of management. It's a matter of management. So in other words, if it means that you need to set up maybe permanent tribunals who can be sitting continuously in order to get the job done, then you need to do so. You have scenarios, I can tell you, where you have disciplinary tribunals and the investigating officers take months and months and months before they themselves start their work. and somebody's on a disciplinary charge within the service. So therefore, that is not a matter of legislation. That's a matter of management of your resources. So in other words, you need to ensure that, look, however you manage or allocate the resources, it is done in a way such that you have the internal efficiencies to drive this process forward. Because there are two things to it. Because first of all, officers will feel, well, it's no big thing if they will be for a disciplinary tribunal because, some of them, I've seen situations where some of them have retired before their matter has been determined. That's how bad it is, That's how bad it is. So
well, Mr. George,
there's a laissez-faire feeling when it comes to that disciplinary process internally.
I need to take a quick break. There's something that I absolutely must do now, which is a time check. The time right now, it's 20 minutes after 7 o'clock. And a time check brought to you with the compliments of Damus Building Solutions. And you need to check out their drone estimator, introducing for the first time ever in TNT, aerial roof measurement with drone technology. From Damus Roofing Systems, you can get faster quotes and avoid wasting materials. Call 866-ROOF today to find out about the drone estimator from Damus Building Solutions. All right, and Dr. Wayne?
Yeah, Mr. George, I don't know if you heard the damage control that the acting commissioner was trying to do last night. I saw the report last night at the passing out of the new 170-something, I think, new recruits, police officers. And he was saying that within the service, himself being an attorney, there are many legal minds, and here's the word, it's time for them to sit down. And coming in 2017, there'll be new legislation to fire these rogue officers. I mean, now at this juncture, Mr. George, why wasn't this thought out 4 or 5 years ago? Why wasn't this done before?
Well, the thing is, with the greatest of respect, I don't even think there's need for new legislation because it can be done even as we speak. There's absolutely no need, with the greatest of respect, for new legislation unless he's speaking about a new summary process. Then, of course, that may be something different. But even using the systems and the processes you have now, there is the ability to dismiss officers. I can tell you, sitting as we are in the Police Service Commission, one of the first matters we dealt with, we dismissed an officer. That was our decision. It was something for gross insubordination, and we dismissed the officer. So therefore, there is that power, and the commissioner has the power, to do that. So therefore, I think it really is a question of implementation. I mean, if he is speaking about legislative enhancements, maybe to boost the powers that he has or to speed up the process, then it's fine. That's okay. But the point is, it's not to say that we don't currently have the ability. And the thing is, unless and until the police service takes the responsibility for policing itself, and that's what I have been saying for years, we need, first of all, to set up an internal affairs unit within the police service of Trinidad and Tobago. Unless and until you do that, you will never, ever see the results that you want to get.
How is it?
I've made reference, sorry, just let me point. I've made reference several times of the time that I spent, with my friend, when he was at the Toronto Police Service. And the way it worked, he told me, he said, listen, you will be working side by side with an officer, and you will never know that that person is an internal affairs officer. So they are always on the lookout because they never know who is internal affairs. And that's what we need in this service in Trinidad and Tobago. Unless and until we set that up, you will never know, because it has to be the officers who are there in the stations, who are there working side by side, who will know what is going on. Mm-hmm. The same way the police come out to the community and say, well, look, you live in the community with these persons who are doing wrong, so you have the information, you need to come to us with it. The same way they need to turn that light and shine that light inwards on themselves and say, hey, we need to start implementing that same process. You can't be asking the public to do it and you yourself not willing to do it.
How does the Professional Standards Bureau differ from an internal affairs division?
Well, the thing is, the Professional Standards Bureau is one that comes into play after the fact. So in other words, if there is an issue that has arisen or a complaint or a suspicion, then they swing into action. But the Internal Affairs Unit, you are more proactive. In other words, you have persons who are actively there all the time on a continuous basis at all stations, all divisions, who are observing and looking to look out for what would be the traces or the signs or signals of corrupt practices, or wrong behavior among their colleagues. So unfortunately, it's not a job where they would be very well liked if they are known, but the beauty of it is to have them in a way that that nobody knows who are the internal affairs officers.
Mr. George,
that's the way it works effectively.
One of the criticisms of the president-elect of the USA was because he said a lot of things that needed to be said, but over the years, these sort of platitudes have come up and a lot of criticisms become buried. So I can understand the angst and the frustration of Mr. West himself. Do you think that really he should be censured, he should resign, or he should be fired, as the case might be, because he is saying what a lot of people are saying and thinking, but having no opportunity to do it?
Well, that's it. And you see, the thing is, as I started off by making my position very clear, I certainly do not think in any way this merits his resignation or any call for his resignation in a sense. Because if we recall, former chairman of the Police Service Commission, Professor Ramesh Deosaran, he similarly expressed frustration.
Yes.
And he said, well, look, I am not staying in this job. I am resigning. And he left, Now, the point is, David has expressed his frustration. As I said, he did it in a slightly injudicious manner because the point is he gave vent to the emotion rather than maintaining that cool, mature head, which is what is required at all times, regardless of whatever internal turmoil you may feel and, whatever internal frustrations. And the clarification, I think, has, made it obvious. Well, look, he did not mean the entire service, and he has withdrawn, the statement in that regard. But let's not blind ourselves to the reality of what is going on in the police service. You have police officers who, because you arm them to the teeth with these big, long rifles, they think that they can ride roughshod over citizens and do as they please. That's part of the problem. That is a serious, serious part of the problem. I have witnessed that type of abuse of power by police officers. It is unbelievable what is going on out there. And the point is, it's only the sensational issues that actually make the news or the papers. But things are happening on a daily basis where our officers think that they are a law unto themselves, and because they know that their internal disciplinary processes don't work, they feel no fear. So the same claims they make against the criminals and say, well, look, the criminals are carrying on because they think the judicial system doesn't work. The same way the rogue officers in the service, because they know their internal disciplinary processes don't work efficiently, they carry on as normal.
To be able to do its job, the PCA must get reports on certain issues, criminal issues and so on, from the police service. Do you think this will impact on the alacrity with which perhaps the police should work in sending a report about some issue to the Police Complaints Authority?
Well, I know that Mr. West has complained repeatedly and profusely in the past about the lack of cooperation that he gets from within the service, because the point is, part of it requires that they must get certain elements of their information and their evidence from the police service.
Yes.
And if you are not getting that cooperation, then of course it makes your job almost impossible, because then you cannot complete your investigation to make your recommendation. Now, the thing is, what we have seen is that the PCA has been calling over the years for increased legislative enhancements so that their powers can be broadened and widened, whereby, say, for instance, I think one of the things they've been lobbying for is, say, for instance, at a crime scene or in terms of an investigation against an officer, if it is that there's some allegation of the use of a firearm, that the PCA can come in and actually take possession of it. Right now they can't, because the point is the firearms legislation will make it a crime for a person who, is not the holder of a firearms user's license or a FUEC, a firearm user's employee certificate, to be in possession of a firearm, that kind of thing. And then it's in relation to the one that you are issued with. So, these are some of the ways that they say they're hamstrung, even in terms of being able to gather evidence at a scene, that they have difficulties with that. So they have been clamoring for increased legislative powers. But certainly within the ambit of the current legislation, I know the PCA has been doing its job. They've been trying, under former Director Gillian Luckey, Justice Luckey, she certainly pushed the envelope as much as she could. I know Mr. West is trying to do the same thing. So the thing is, certainly it's not a question of us trying to throw out the baby with the bathwater because of an inappropriate remark. I certainly don't think that you can look at it, examine it, and fundamentally say that Mr. West is, fatally flawed, as Dr. Tiwari seems to dramatically put it across. I don't see it as that, with the greatest of respect.
Mr. Joe, before we go, I must ask you about this, because the atrocious crime that just took place over the past few days, that I think was a tipping point for the nation, and there's the headline outcry from the public, including those from the clergy: hang them. Hang them. People are prepared to take the streets, as it were, if it comes to that, to make their voice heard, because enough is enough. What can be done to bend the arm of the judicial system, as it were, to enforce the law?
Yes, well, the thing is, the cries of hang them always arise in circumstances such as this. But, before we even get to that, you must have proper investigative techniques. You must have proper systems in place. I can tell you, I witnessed a scenario just this weekend where, in terms of a report being made at a police station, the person is there and the police officer is just standing and saying, all right, okay, and that's how they are taking a report. So the person says, well, aren't you going to write anything? And the officer says, well, oh, you want me to write? It's like the officer is surprised. Oh, you really want me to write? So, and I'm talking about, this is the norm. This is the norm that occurs so many times. Then, alarmingly, what the officer then does, just tears a piece of scrap paper and starts scribbling. And, you look on at this and you wonder, is this what our policing systems are in the year 2016? So in other words, where is the record of that report if somebody comes back 2 days later, 3 days later to say, well, look, this citizen X came in at such and such time at such and such station to this officer and made a report? Well, if you are writing it on a scrap of paper that you've just torn, what happens to that scrap of paper
it's probably
when,
in the trash
when that
basket.
citizen leaves? Where is that going? The most likely place is in the trash bin. So, we really need to examine our systems, because if you don't even catch the criminals, how do we even reach that question of talking about hanging them? So I think it really starts with that. It really, really starts with that. You look at, situations that occur in the U.S., for instance, where officers have been accused of things. You look at how quickly they move in terms of their investigation, and then they make their decision. Yes, this person is to be charged. This person is to be brought before the court. They've been, jailed and bailed, and, then they start their trial. That's how
expeditiously.
you get things done. That's right. That's right. Look at the killer of Joe Cox. The British parliamentarian.
Yes.
Look how
swiftly
that occurred in June. The man has been sentenced already. So we need to be serious. We really need to be serious. And we're not seeing that, and unfortunately. And, you know, I mean, it's like it's a constant litany of talk, and the simple things we can do to start revitalizing the process, to start to dot our I's and cross our T's. We are not doing them. But, you know, then we call and say, well, we want legislative change. You don't need to even go so far. Look at what you have now. Start improving your systems from the small steps. You know, Confucius said a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Let's start with the small steps first, and those changes will work.
Martin George, I hope that they listen to your advice and the small steps have begun even as we speak. Thank you for joining us this morning on the Breakfast Roundtable.
Always a pleasure, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Your Honor, I pray that they will enforce your
recommendations,
your verdict.
Well, I hope we keep the discussion going to, you know, raise the sensitivity and the awareness in the general public so that there will be that pressure on our leaders to make the changes.
Thanks very much for joining us. This is Sky 99.5 FM. We have got more in this hour. Stay with us.
Don't touch a button. We'll be right back with more on Sky 99.5.